o'clock. Entirely possible I might talk too much.
Oh my gosh. We never saw that coming.
For a talk show?
Yeah. No way we could have anticipated that.
I know me. If I get one of those tirades, God knows what's going to happen.
But it's a good thing. I mean, I love it. I mean, I know that sometimes, not sometimes, it used to create length issues, I think, but David always took care of those. But I mean, somewhere along the way, it seems like you found a way to have the passion and the rant and still do it within, the time frame. So the passion is great.
Thank you. Okay. I
All
am
right.
ready.
I'll count us down. Here we are. As soon as I said that, my voice goes south. I'll count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker. She's the host of the program and the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most people are very concerned about preparing their home for sale, as well they should be. Many want to know the steps to take to make the most amount of money. So, what are some key things that home sellers need to do to get their homes ready for a big sale?
I'm lost. So did you go on to segment 2 or are we going to redo 1?
I think we need to redo 1. Did you throw away 1?
Oh, you know what? I may have. That's what I was saying. In terms of where we were starting.
Okay.
I thought you said that we were.
Yeah, because we had the ghost sister in there.
That is something
It sounded
I
awful.
didn't allow.
It sounded awful.
I went back and listened to it, and I was just
terrible.
like, I can't use any of this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check my locker.
God knows what I'm going to say today.
All right.
I mean, Richard, do you need it or?
I have it right here.
I mean, I think you're right. It would probably be passable, but it would be noticeable.
Just like this.
Okay. No, I'm gonna have to. You're putting on the Tasquita or whatever that is.
Yeah. If it'll let.
It just, I mean, it is funny. I don't want to use the word rinky dink, but it just seems like time after time. I complain about this all the time, but
BJ, are you still there?
I am. I just had to print it out.
Okay.
So that is 4 minutes and 14 seconds that none of us will ever get back.
I'm sorry.
Said me trying to diminish the delay by saying, oh, it's 4 minutes. Okay. Now I am ready. I'll start again. Here we go. 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the host of the program and the owner broker of Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, we air Your Real Estate Voice every Saturday. If you can't listen to the entire show, it is always available on Barb's site, barbhasthebuyers.com, or just go ahead and search for Barb. You'll find her on most of the popular podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, etc. Every week, Your Real Estate Voice covers great information about the housing market and one of the largest assets that most people have, the home. Barb, what are we covering today?
Well, Richard, I'm excited about today's show because it's really kind of an interesting market. It seems like every month there's something a little bit different about what the dynamics in the market, what's going on, what's not going on. So people are wondering, is it more of a buyer's market or a seller's market? What that means is the buyer has the advantage in the negotiation, or in a seller's market, the seller has the advantage in the negotiation. So we're going to deep dive on some market stats and just give you kind of a rough idea of where we're at right now here in the prime time of selling season. And then the next topic is a question I get an awful lot when I go out and meet with home sellers, which is, how should I prepare my home for sale? What do I need to do to the house to get it ready for sale? Because of course, you don't put your home on the market the same way you normally live in the home. And then the third question I get quite a bit, because actually 80% of the buyers out there have a house to sell before they can buy their next home. So it's the number one dilemma we have with people trying to trade up or down into a new home. So we're going to cover how to sell a house and buy a house at the same time. It can be pulled off, but it's a little bit tricky. Plus, we have our cash offer platform that makes it very easy. And the last topic, I get this question an awful lot now, especially since the National Association of Realtors settlement, is having a buyer's agent really worth it? Just this morning, I had a seller go, what exactly do they do? And I was like, oh, that's a good question. Let me think about it and get back to you. It was kind of like that, because, but I tried to explain that there are thousands of agents out there. They all have some have buyers that they're working with. And that's the way they get paid, is if they bring their buyer to the listing. So, but the duties is another topic. And as always, I love talking about my new listings. Richard?
So, Barb, we're heading into that spring selling season. The Fed seems uncertain about lowering interest rates while the demand is lower than it was last year. What kind of market are we in now? A buyer's market where the buyer has the advantage, or a seller's market where the seller has the advantage?
Well, it's kind of in between the two of them right now. It depends on what county you're in, where you're buying and selling. The way the statistical people outline a seller's market is if the average days on market goes over 90 to 120 days. And we're really close to reaching that on a few of the counties around the Front Range. But it's not just the market in general. It could be that house or that neighborhood or that price range. There's a lot of factors that come into play. And so you really need to hire an expert that understands the market and that can help you position the home to be the most desirable one that's on the market. And I've read that about 80% of the buyers are out there kind of sitting on the sideline, hoping that the rates are going to drop down, or hoping that the prices are going to drop down. But I feel like if that happens, if the rates go down with a 5 in front of it, the buyers are all going to come out of the woodwork at the same time. And the net result will be the prices are going to be driven back up, because you'll have more competition on the buyer side with homes. The rates in general, the Fed hasn't helped us much. In general, the mortgage rates, even though they fluctuate hourly during the week, in general, they've been hovering around the same range of about upper sixes conventional, low sixes for the government FHA, VA loans. And you could always, though, refinance later or buy down the rate if the perfect house hits the market. And so there are some people holding out for better rates, but if you find the dream home, I don't think that's the best idea. And the reason is that when you put a house on the market, what most agents typically do is they look at, okay, here's a home like yours that sold, therefore your home must sell for that price. But every home has different things about it. It could be the location, it could be the floor plan, it could be something as small as curb appeal. It could be the number of bedrooms and baths, or whether or not it has a finished basement, or whether or not it has a basement at all, whether or not it has extra living space or unfinished space. And every buyer is looking for different things. And one of the things that I noticed is that the buyers are very well educated in their price range as far as what they're looking for. They are very aware of what's on the market, probably more so than most agents. And they can pretty much notice if a home is priced right and is presented as the best home on the block. So what we're seeing right now, really in general, is the market is a little bit softer than it was last year. But I think that as we go into the summer, it could get a lot better. The rates are kind of staying the same. Homes are definitely not selling faster. The average days on market last year was 48 days. Now, that's only the homes that are getting contracts. Keep in mind, there are some homes that may not sell until they lower the price to where they get a buyer. Right now in El Paso County, average days on market are hovering around 76 days. Number of available homes is really kicked up by 30%. And so what that tells me is that if there's more homes available, and the rates are pretty much the same with a lot of buyers sitting on the sideline, it leans more to a buyer's market. Douglas County prices have retracted back from where they were at the beginning of the year. Their average days on market is only 64 days. And yes, their inventory is going up too. Teller County is pretty much the same story, although Teller County, mountain communities in general, that area, their prime time is starting right now. This is where all the Texans come out and they see the beautiful mountains and they can't resist it. So summertime is the hot time for Teller County for sure. So it's been relatively flat looking backwards, but we're going to see inventory rise going into the summer. Pueblo has a large variety of price ranges. Right now, the median list price is in the mid threes, but the average days on market is a lot higher, up to 111 days. But here it is. Every home is different. Every neighborhood is different. How the home is presented for sale is different. We just sold one this past week, basically to a cash buyer very quickly. We didn't do the normal process of going on the market and trying to make it look like a model home, but the seller got the price that they wanted, the buyer got the home that they wanted, and everything's working out great. So if you are thinking of making a move, you want to sit down with somebody that's very familiar with your area, familiar with the market, that does some sales, that really understands what's going on in the market right now, with as much as half or more home sellers lowering their price over time. That tells me that they're not getting really good advice about what their home will sell for, what they're likely to sell for right now in this market. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Typically, we can match up to 800 buyers for any one home. Plus, we have our cash offers. Give us a call, 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb, we're discussing the Fed's recent increase on that Fed borrowing rate and whether or not it has an effect on the housing market. So, Barb Schlinker, what should home sellers expect and do in a market situation like this one?
Well, Richard, in most cases, we're not seeing bidding wars unless the seller makes a decision to price the home, what I call very realistically, coupled with a great home and a great location in great condition. We just did that on one home, and we definitely got a bidding war, and the outcome was very good. The seller's very happy, the buyer's very happy, and we're moving forward. But that really doesn't happen all the time. Preparation is key. I just met with a seller this morning. And before we did photo day, I walked through the house with him and said, all right, do this, do this, do this, do that. And he did everything I said. I was so surprised when I saw the home. It looks amazing. And then now it's so pared down. I said, okay, you can put some things back because you still live here. And that's fine because we've got the photo, we've got what we need to get the buyers in the door. And in general, if a home needs work, probably about 40+% of those buyers are going to pass on that home unless it's priced what I call very, very realistically. And you have to understand that your first showing on a house is online. If you don't win their hearts and minds on the internet, the buyers won't even come to see it. That means the marketing has to be right, and or the pricing has to be right, and it's presented in a proper way to attract the right buyer from the home. One of my colleagues calls it online dating, which I think is very cute, but that is very much like that. And, years ago, when back in the old days, before all of these homes were online and made available for the buyers to see, what has changed is that the quality of the imagery is so good that many times the buyers are making a decision as to whether or not they're going to buy the home before they even go see it. They haven't even looked at the home yet. When I first started in the industry way back, a long time ago, the internet and the photos and the quality really wasn't that good. So typically the buyers are going to look at anywhere from 20 to 40. I think my record back then was one buyer looked at 126 homes. That one kind of wore me out, but they bought the 127th. And, but now buyers only physically view 1 to 5 homes. And, they're expecting a lot. They're expecting the photos to be good. And if you only have a minute to make an impression. So if they don't get what they want in that 1 minute by looking at your home online, they are moving on and they won't be back. So that's why you have to hire somebody that really knows how to position the home to attract that online buyer as well as the in-person buyer. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. We have over 28,117 buyers just on our little website. Typically, we can match up to 800 homes, and we also have our cash buyers. So just call us 719-301-3900 or barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice. That's Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. She is your real estate voice. And if you are thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. A short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing how should you prepare a home for sale before selling it. Stay tuned for that. All right. That's pretty quick. It's amazing how things go when you don't have to try to debug the entire system.
Not sure how we broke it so badly.
Well, because I was telling actually before, about an hour before you came on, I was talking with David and I said, the frustrating thing is here that nobody did anything. You didn't do anything wrong. Griff didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything. What's that?
We didn't change anything.
I know.
Same old settings, same old equipment.
That is, to me, that is the most frustrating thing. And I've gone round and round sometimes with auto mechanics or engineers. I'm like, this is exactly the way it was yesterday when it worked just fine. I mean, just fine. And then I'm thinking, well, but there has to be something that was different. And boy, there usually is, but finding it is not always the easiest thing in the world. All right. I have
you want to try to do segment 2?
And now I want to try to do segment 2, doing them in order. All right. And I'm good whenever you are, Barb.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, host of the program and owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most people are very concerned about preparing their homes for sale. They should be. Many homes want to know. Do that again. 3, 2, 1. Now, Barb, most people are very concerned about preparing their home for sale. Many want to know what steps to take to make the most money. So, what are some key things that home sellers need to do to get their home ready for a sale?
Well, Richard, it starts with a selling strategy. So I would say, number one, pick somebody that would help you accomplish your goals. That's number one. And that's usually one of the questions. It is one of the questions that we ask when we meet with sellers. You know, what is your goal? How quickly do you want to sell? What's your expected outcome? What do you think it's worth? There's a lot of questions like that we talk about to make them basically tell us what their mission is with the sale. Some people are not in a hurry. Some people are in a hurry. Some people don't want to do any remodeling. Some people don't want to do any showing. It's different with every single seller. So we have to sit down and find out exactly what the selling strategy is. And you've got to consider, if you're going to go, you know, very limited showings, then probably it's going to sell for a lower price. Or if you're going to go full on beautiful HGTV look, that's a different plan. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to completely remodel the whole house, but you want to make it to a state of what I call move-in ready. For me, flooring is critical. If you don't take care of flooring, especially if the carpet's got traffic marks on it, hardwood floor looks scuffed and bad and all that stuff, the buyers can see that. The cameras and the photography these days really pick up on just a little bit of wear on the carpet. But I think buyers, even if the home is not remodeled, can actually move into a house if it's priced right and put their own taste on it and do their own remodeling down the road. But flooring is something that's a very big inconvenience to redo right after you bought the house. So I would say most buyers definitely are going to pass on a home that needs flooring. And it's critical that you decide to get those, what I call 3 Ps right: preparation, pricing, and promotion, which that is the responsibility of the agent. So when you select an agent, you know, everybody has their different way of doing it. Most people don't interview jobs. We've made a mistake before by picking a contractor that didn't work for us, which costs us a lot of money down the road. Well, the same thing can happen with the real estate agent. If you hire somebody that doesn't know how to market, that doesn't take good photos. I just helped Nona and Victor last fall, where they had their house on the market for 110 days with a realtor that obviously didn't know a whole lot about marketing. The photos were awful, but what was interesting was the house was beautiful. So he took these smartphone photos, couldn't be bothered to spend a few $100s to present the home properly, way overpriced the home. The seller even went to the expense and trouble to bring in staging furniture. So traditionally, bringing in staging furniture cost anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a month. Imagine burning that much money every single month just to try to get a buyer. But it didn't work because the photos were so bad, you could not get the buyers in the door. So we solved that problem immediately. We had a huge initial crowd when it went on the market. We got one offer that I suggested to the seller probably wouldn't work, but I said, stand by. We're getting a lot of interest. And sure enough, within 9 days, boom, full price and sold. And there was another buyer complaining that I didn't save the house for him that had been on the market now for 120 days. So many people really, though, don't know how to select an agent, and they use various reasons for doing it. It might be, I like the agent. I knew the agent. They sold me the house. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But the question is, are they going to be the ones to really help you accomplish your goals with the sale of the property? And with everybody, it's a little bit different. And it is a big asset. It's not the same as selling a car. At the end of the day, a lot of people think that hiring somebody, like what a company does, is you have, you just talk to them and you decide you like them and you move on from there. But it is almost like interviewing for a job. In a way, did they present themselves well? Did they say the right things to able to get you to meet your goals? And is it real? Like what I notice a lot of times agents will do is they'll say, oh, I can get you, 2 million for your house, when it's not realistic, right? But you do it anyway because the appeal of money is so attractive. And then the house sits on the market, it's not selling, not moving, and that's really a disaster, because then it gets kind of market worn, in my opinion. So I would not pick an agent if the agent comes in and basically says, I can get you way more than anybody else, because they definitely could be wrong. And really the strategy is, hey, get the seller to sign the agreement. Then the other agents will come along, if they do show, and they'll say, oh, it's priced too high, it's priced too high. Then they can make the other agent the bad guy and they can walk the price down to get it to sell. I don't think that works in a seller's best interest. I mean, of course, we'd love to get a seller the most money, but one of the things that we put together is a agent selection guide. So if you go on my website, I have all kinds of free reports. One of them is called a free agent selection guide. So you just click on that green button and request that report. But as far as getting the house ready for sale, it starts with cleaning, which also involves decluttering. That's absolutely critical. It was funny. I've got one on the market this week, but when I first went in the home, she had this really pretty antique armoire in the living room, but the piece was big. It was way oversized. It was sticking out in the room, and it was interfering with the focal point of the room, which was this beautiful fireplace with this carved tiger wood oak mantle. It was gorgeous. And I'm like, you're taking away from that focus, and it's just too big of a piece. But it didn't look that way to the eye. So I said, let me show you. So I took a picture with my phone on the horizontal, not the vertical, and said, look at this. You can see it on the phone, but you can't necessarily see it with your own eyes, because our eyes have really good wide angle vision. Cleaning's critical. Make sure all the bathrooms are clean, all the rugs are picked up for photo day. Make sure that all the hardware is clean. Clean is very, very important, especially around the front door. Odors can really be a problem. I did just sell a house that had cigarette smell, and that's, other than that, it was a good house, but that's essentially why the seller decided to price it on the low side. But it did work. He got his price and everybody was happy. But in general, you got to be really careful about odors. So don't go cooking heavy smell foods. Don't put on the crock pot when you're showing, if you can avoid it. And some people don't notice odors because they live with it so long. The best way you can tell is go for a walk, just a short walk, and then walk inside your home, and you should be able to smell it. So those definitely need to be neutralized. Of course, get rid of trash. Windows and screens are important to clean, but actually it doesn't pick up on cameras. So it's, a lot of people ask me about that, and it's not necessary. On the depersonalization, oh, I didn't say that word right. On the depersonalized front, you want to make sure you clear off a lot of clutter from tabletops, ledges, countertops, all the little tchotchkes that are all over the place. You really want to pack those away. First of all, they could get lifted. That could happen. We don't want that to happen, but people come through your house, you never know. So you want to make sure all the counters are clear. What a lot of people tend to do is they might put some kind of fabric piece like a doily on top of dressers and end tables, and it just doesn't look good in photos. So I would definitely pick those up, put those away. As far as personal pictures, if you have a few strategically placed family photos, that's okay. But if you are covering a wall with your life story, is very distracting. The buyers are no longer focused on the house when they're inside. They are looking at your story. And so you're better off really paring that down as much as possible. Also, things like refrigerator magnets, take them down, that sort of thing. That's just a kind of a taste of some of the things that you can do to get ready for sale. And if you want that free report, the free agent selection guide, and the 10 questions you should ask before you hire an agent, go to barbhasthebuyers.com or give us a call, 719-301-3900. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker on Your Real Estate Voice. It's the name of the program. Your home sold guaranteed realty is Barb Schlinker. And if you're thinking of selling your home, you want to get the most. I'm sorry, let me take a sip here. Gosh dang it. I know. God, and I can talk for 2 hours, and not once during the show did it do that. Not once. All right, here we go. You're listening to Barb Schlinker on Your Real Estate Voice. If you're thinking of selling your home and want to get the most amount of money when you sell, you call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll come back. We'll be talking. I don't like any of that. 321. You're listening to Barb Schlinker on Your Real Estate Voice. Barb Schlinker is your real estate voice. And if you are thinking of selling your home and want to get the most amount of money for it when you sell, call Barb 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. When we come back, we'll be covering how to sell a house and buy a house at the same time. It's a catch-22. Barb will explain it. All right.
That was short and sweet. What were you talking about on your show today, Richard?
We spent a lot of time talking about the Golden Dome that President Trump wants, and then spent a fair amount of time talking about just the Biden administration. The fact that we don't have any idea who was running the show. We now know that it absolutely positively was not Joe Biden.
No.
And I guess I just editorialized on the fact that how weird it is that you have all these Democrats and liberals out there and they don't know who. I mean, they can't lie about it and say, oh, it's Joe Biden. That lie's gone already. And yet they seem to have no concern at all about who was calling the shots, because anybody is better than Donald Trump, even if we don't know who that is. And,
Well,
so I took up most of the show. Talked a little bit about like Afghanistan, and Secretary of Defense says we need to look into the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Who is responsible for that blank show?
it was terrible.
And I saw the cutest video about a week ago, and I don't know if the guy died or not, but it was one of the Marines right there by Abbey Gate before the explosion. And he's just going from one little kid to another, giving them water, trying to keep them hydrated and comfortable, hoping that, they could get them out of the country. And here this guy is, I mean, they need to be worrying about getting themselves out of that. And it's a dicey situation. And they didn't hire him to be a humanitarian aid worker, but there he was. It just makes you so proud of the people we have in our military.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's home with me, for sure. Max's platoon was tagged to go there while that was going on.
Isn't that chilling?
But he didn't go, and they were upset about it. They were bummed out that they didn't get to go. you know.
That speaks highly of him and his friends.
Yeah.
All right.
That is one thing that I noticed that you didn't do this year is do a segment specifically for vets.
Yeah.
You did last year.
Okay. It's a good suggestion. It's been a while since I talked about that.
All right. I'm ready to go here. Barb, you good?
I'm ready.
I'll count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. She's the host of the program, and this is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most people are very concerned about which comes first: sell first, then live in temporary housing, or buy first, then sell at your leisure. What are some solutions that you have, Barb, for people who are going through that catch-22? Solutions from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty.
Well, Richard, I think in most cases, the home sellers want certainty, right? It is a huge project to move. It's not a small thing. You got to, declutter, get rid of stuff, show the house, make it look pretty for showing. And then once you get a contract, it seems like a happy day, but is it really certain? And I think home sellers want certainty. They want certainty it's going to sell, certainty that the sale is going to go through, certainty that it's going to close. And there are so many landmines from the time you accept a contract to closing. It's kind of crazy. And one of them is that what if I don't have a place to go to, right? So most sellers have to have a destination picked out or in mind, or maybe they wrote an offer on another house and they're waiting for this one to close to buy their next one. I had that happen very recently where, and this is amazing. The state, excuse me, the state kind of has set up our contracts where the buyer essentially can bail out of the deal at any point in the game, even at the closing table, and still get their earnest money back, which is crazy because most of the time they're asking the seller to move out. Hey, Mr. Seller, we want to buy your house, but we don't want to be, on the hook for it until we actually close. If we actually close, it's just wrong. In fact, last week I had a closing where 2 days before closing, we get this email at 6 p.m. Of course, it can't be during business hours. And it was a form created by the National Association of Realtors that basically says either extend our contract or we terminate. It was almost like this ultimatum: give us what we want or we are walking. This was 2 days before closing. This was when the sellers already moved out. They were already buying another house in another state. And I'm like, so did an explanation come with this form? No, basically it blew up the contract if the seller didn't sign it. So I'm on the phone. Carilla DeVille's coming out of me. I'm having a hissy fit about this because I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And the agent's like, well, you'll have to talk to the lender. I'm like, you don't know what's going on? It's your buyer. Well, I'm not a lender. So anyway, so I got the lender on the phone. Turned out the buyer was actually changing their loan program at the last minute. Nobody told us. We're the last ones to find out, the seller side, right? And so now the seller's buying another house in another state. We're 2 days before closing. He's having to do all this hoop jump to change that deal back there. It was crazy. And the seller's like, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm not going to let somebody give me this kind of ultimatum and force me to sign this document just because they changed their mind about their loan program. And I agreed with them. So we didn't. And the house went out of contract. Technically, we could have jumped on a new buyer if we wanted to. And we did get multiple offers on that house. And that's what we told the buyer's agent. Hey, sorry, you don't have a contract. That's your problem for dropping a bomb on the contract right before closing. Oh, don't do that. They're going to close. They're going to close. And they did close. They were a couple days late, but at the end of the day, why would you do that? The seller said, all they had to do was ask me nicely and give me a little bit of advance notice so I can make arrangements on the other end. It's almost like it was completely inconsiderate about the seller side and all. If you don't give us what we want, we're the buyer, we're walking, you know. And the answer from their team leader was, well, the division of real estate created that form. I said, well, that's probably some idiot lawyer that's never sold a house in their life before. So they don't understand the whole picture. And so I think that sellers want certainty in the process, yet there is no certainty in the process. The way the contracts are set up, they have 10 things that the buyer could bail out. And then they added another provision in the contract that says that they could bail out at the closing table and there's nothing you can do about it. They just sit on the earnest money for 120 days. And by law, they have to give it back to the buyer. So it's been driving me crazy over the years. I can't change that world, but I can at least let people know what to expect. So I actually had a home seller, it was 2 years ago now, really, really nice home. He was an ex-Marine infantry officer, a very gruff guy. And I asked him his goals. What are your plans? And he goes, well, I want the most money. I said, okay, well, this is how we get it. So we priced it right. We got a huge crowd at the open house. I was so proud of myself because I was sat down with him on Memorial Day with 6 offers and I was like all excited. And I said, isn't this fun? And he goes, no, I told you to get me the most money, Barb. How are you going to do that? So I had to scramble. I had to go back to the top 2 offers and play mom against dad. But at the end of the day, we got the price up to the maximum number. One buyer was cash, and it was a little bit lower than the buyer that wasn't cash. So he goes, how does it work if it's not cash? I said, well, we have to look at similar sales in the neighborhood and prove the value when the appraiser comes along. So this is after inspection. Then they do an appraisal. The appraiser could come back and say, oh, it's not worth that much. We got to either lower the price or the buyer could walk away. And he looked at me and he goes, seems to me you accept a contract, but then you're just wallowing around in the mud and then it's over and that's the end. And I said, it's pretty much how it works. And I thought it was real cute of him to say that. So, of course, he picked the cash offer because they had this big household that they're going to move, very soon when they start packing. If something goes sideways with that transaction, the house is no longer going to look show ready. And that's why they opted for, even though he wanted the most money, he took a little bit lower offer to have that certainty that it was going to go through. So we know how to do that. We know how to put protections in place for home sellers to make sure that they have some certainty in the process. But at the end of the day, the stakes are kind of stacked against you in the state of Colorado. So you really have to work with somebody that understands contracts, understands what they mean. Now, the other side of this, if you're going to buy a house in another state, it kind of depends on what the market's like out there. If it's a red hot market, there are some red hot markets right now. I think the North New England area is hot. I think Phoenix is hot. Florida's getting killed. Their prices are dropping. So you could negotiate in Florida. But there are certain parts of the country where the market values are going up and they're having competition. So if you go to a seller out there and say, hey, I want to buy a house, but it's contingent on my house selling, which is, if it's not under contract yet, you'll probably get shot down. If you are under contract, they're going to kind of look into that sale and find out, where are you in the process? Are you close to being sold? Have you gone past inspection and appraisal? What is the status before a seller will actually accept a contract contingent on a home selling? However, we have some solutions for all of these problems. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. So it's very important that you hire the team that has your back, that understands what's going on with the contract, that's going to fight for you. And because nobody wants surprises when they're moving. It's just no fun when that happens. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about what do you do if you want to buy your next home, but you have a house to sell. And when we come back, we're going to be covering some of the solutions that we have to help you move to your next home hassle-free. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, we've gone from nearly all homes selling for a premium price to homes sitting longer on the market and some homes not selling at all. Barb, how do you give your home sellers certainty when it comes to a sale?
Well, there are some solutions. Like we actually have two investors that will help you take your equity out of your house, buy your next home first, and then you have 120 days or longer to sell your current home. That solves the problem. And that's typically one of the easiest ways to make that transition. And that's a really good, those programs are really, really good, and they're not very expensive. We also have cash buyers that will basically cash you out of most of your equity on the first sale. They go on to resell it, and then you pull more equity out when it sells on the open market. So we'll sit down with you and we'll go over all the options. There's no cost or obligation. We actually have 69 high net worth cash investors that can come in and help you tap into your equity and make that transition hassle-free. Not everybody can do this. In addition, we can tap into our own buyers. Like if you want to sell it fast and not deal with the open market, we've helped a lot of people do that recently, where we actually tap into our own book of buyers and market to them and get you offers and not have to deal with the whole dance of going on the market and making it look pretty. All you need to do if you are thinking of making a move is give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. And we could sit down with you. We give you a free in-home consultation on what to do and what not to do to get your house ready for sale. We go over all the offers. We go over all the options that you have with us. And so that way you can make a really good informed decision about how you're going to handle one of your largest assets. Sure.
Give her a call, Barb Schlinker, 719-301-3900. You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you are thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. When we come back, we'll be discussing, is having a buyer's agent even worth it? Stay tuned for that. You know, I double pumped on that when I read a line that I think was supposed to be for Barb. So if you just go, you're listening to, you know that. Okay.
DJ, you can strike the word idiot before lawyer.
That was so good. That, you know what? Because I was tempted to interject. I don't like to interject. I mean, if there's a time if you want me to, I'm happy to. But I swear to God, lawyers have ruined more deals in business, in real estate, in almost any type of negotiations. And when my wife was and I were moving out here, she's going into a medical practice. And, you know, we didn't really plan for her being on television, but I was smart enough to know that a lot of TV stations like having somebody, a doctor, especially a women's, you know, baby doctor, to come on once a week and talk about things. And it's an added bonus because it's just free advertising for her.
No,
So
it's great.
we wanted to put something in there that just addressed that, and that all it would say was that the firm that she was coming out to work with, she ended up being a partner, but that she would have the right to do that. Oh my God. By the time we got done with that, you would have thought that we were negotiating an end to the Berlin crisis or something like that. And it turned out it never even mattered. She was, you know, happy, busy doing what she was doing, didn't really want to be on television. So it was all for naught. And I have to say, Barb, looking back on it, when I say lawyers can ruin deals, I was the one who was just being way too persnickety on that.
Yeah, but it's no strike against the industry, because when you need them, you really need them, right? But
And that's just the way it is
somebody didn't think through that form.
at all.
It's like, here, put a gun to your head, sign it. That's kind of what it came across from the seller, you know.
Well,
Too-
and I think you know, and I think that that's the deal is you go into some lawyer's office or somebody knows somebody or here, can you draft this? and they just grab something from a contract they did before and some boilerplate from over here, because that's how everything is done. They just have a word processor. Cindy, take paragraph here, number 2, put this in here, and then they just cut and paste it all up, and then they're done with it. Well, sometimes that works, but when you're doing something like this is way too important, and too many people are relying on that. You really ought to have an attorney who's got some experience in the real estate market, but
Yeah,
that's just me.
that whole team. I mean, then they go on to say they were supposed to close on Friday. Oh yeah, we're going to close. We're going to close. And then they, you know, they go to the walkthrough, but then they don't walk through the house. And so the buyer's agent told my partner that her husband just got deported. And I'm just like, what? But when I asked the title closer, when they came in to close that the day that they did close, I told her that, and she goes, well, that's funny because he was there at the closing. So I'm like, who are these people that just will lie to get you off their back,
I think that even when I was an attorney, I think I used to believe in the good of people and stuff. And I don't think I had any idea just how willing people were to lie to get out of something. And it didn't even have to be a big something to get out of. They lied to their boss about, oh my God, I've got this crisis and I really can't be in tomorrow. Da, 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 da. And they just wanted actually to meet their daughter at, the
Right.
DIA or something like that. And
Fine with them.
right, exactly.
Not fine with me.
Yeah, well, I think most people would be that way. I suppose there's liable to be somebody that isn't, but all right, I got number 4. I'm locked, loaded, as they say in your profession, Barb.
Okay, I'm ready.
Count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, I know from my experience as a trial attorney that there was almost zero training on how to negotiate, not in law school. I had to learn it from my colleagues or by doing it myself. Are people asking these days, what is the value of a buyer's agent?
They're asking more and more. They're like, wait, I got to pay for that. And it's weird. They were paying for it before this rule change with the National Association of Realtors, but it was the listing agent's commission. And out of that, the listing agent would pay the buyer's agent, right? But that all changed. And now the buyer's agent commission is negotiated in the contract. So it does beg the question, what is it that they do? Okay. And in many cases, I have a hard time answering that question. I mean, just last week, I put a home under contract where the agent didn't even show the house. I had an open house. I was there. I was the one that sold the house, in my view. And then this guy starts, giving me what for about that I'm supposed to answer him on a Saturday night. I'm like, I got to go now because if I don't, I'm not going to be very nice. But, just crazy stuff that goes on. Everybody defines their own job in their own way, and it is kind of mysterious, so you never know what to expect. The other thing that happens is these quote buyer's agents that are supposed to represent the buyer, once they get a contract, they completely abdicate the whole entire job to a transaction coordinator, which does not have any kind of definition. It is not regulated by the state. It is an admin person. I don't really know what they do. All I know is I'm getting texts and calls and emergency requests to schedule an inspection on a Sunday night. And I'm just like, stop. I'm not going to work on Sundays, and especially not on Sunday night, solely because you and your admin assistant didn't plan ahead. And even though I send out this inspection policy and I tell them, all right, this is how we do business, please contact me during business hours. I mean, think about it. Do lawyers work after business hours, Richard? I don't know.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I think it depends on the lawyer. And that's why a lot of what you talk about is so important, because experience, there's no replacing experience. You've been doing this for a couple of decades. There's no replacement for that. You can't teach that in any type of a real estate course or some sort of a symposium or seminar.
Yeah, so kind of the history behind buyer agency. When I first got licensed in the 90s, it was a relatively new concept. It basically was, okay, before the seller pays the commission. So everybody was focused on getting the seller's house sold, right? And the seller would pay the fee to the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So the whole idea of splitting that fee up was to leverage all the rest of the agents out there with buyers, right? But technology just rolled over the real estate industry, and I don't think they even notice it now. And so what happens is all these tech companies came in and said, well, we can create a better mousetrap than the 1,500 different MLSs in the country that don't talk to each other and market directly to buyers. And we're using the listings that are put in these old antiquated MLS systems. And so what happened is they just overtook the industry. Now they're selling buyer leads to agents, and that's where the buyers go. That is where the buyers go, is to these tech companies. They don't search in the multiple listing service, at least not very often. It's just a place where agents hang out and get information. So at the end of the day, there's some rules, there's some ethics rules, and there's this and that of what you can and can't do. And some of them make sense, some of them don't. But the agents are paid not on performance, but on bringing the buyer, solely that. So I had a couple years ago, I had a listing. This was kind of during the boom, young couple selling this house. They were moving because the HOA was giving them a hard time about parking his commercial vehicle on his own driveway. And so we went on the market. We got it under contract, and the agent reached out to schedule the inspection. And I got on the phone with her. I said, this was during COVID. I said, I want to make sure that you're going to be there for the inspection with the buyer, because both Mr. and Mrs. Seller are working, and there's a beautiful teenage daughter home alone. And she goes, oh, don't worry. Tell the kiddo I'll be there. And I said, okay, great. But I didn't trust her. I sent my admin staff. Sure enough, we get there at 9 in the morning. The digital lockbox, which only licensed agents can open, was opened. He was gone, two strange men in the house, and the agent wasn't there. She came and opened the door and left. So I called her and said, I asked you to be there at that inspection and you weren't there. And her answer was, well, I forgot I had a closing. I'm like, nobody forgets closings. That's payday for us. And she's like, well, I just had to go. I'm like, okay, well, how would you feel if some agent let two strange men in your house with a teenage daughter home alone? How would you like that? And her answer to me was, why are you being so mean to me? So I had posted in the MLS, if you do these things, I'm going to whack money off the commission. So I did. I whacked money off the commission at closing. Oh my God, you thought I'd killed somebody. You know, the broker goes to red alert. They start yelling at me, you can't do that. And I said, fine, take me to arbitration. I can't wait to tell this story in front of your peers. Please do it. So they have 180 days to file that. They never filed it. Finally, the title company got tired of holding $1,000, and they did release the money, and I just gave it to the seller. But I would love to be able to tie, the commission to performance, because you never know what you're going to get. Just the other day, I had an agent on the inspection brought in, it was an older house, so they wanted to check the sewer line, which is fine. But in my inspection policy, it's, if you're going to do that, you need to bring in a licensed plumber. Did they bring a licensed plumber? No, they brought a sewer excavation company to check out the sewer line. Well, what do you think they're going to find? What do you think they're in the business of doing, which is tearing out sewer lines and replacing it? I said, that seems like a conflict of interest. Why are you doing that? Well, I always do it that way. And the problem is they train, and on top of that, they drew this paint in the front yard. So the seller actually thought they were going to come back the next day and dig holes. And I'm like, whoa, stop. we don't have any agreement to do any of that stuff. But my point is, there is no job description for a real estate agent, either a listing agent or a buyer's agent. It doesn't exist. So everybody just makes up the rules as they go along. And they kind of embed into you with the training, the very limited 1-month training to be a real estate agent, that if you sign on to be a quote fiduciary, an advocate for your client, your job is to get stuff for the client. That's what they think. And sometimes the get stuff motivation actually gets in the way of the buyer getting in the house, which is totally crazy because they blow up the deal, just like what happened last week. They blew up the deal to get stuff and they almost caused that buyer to not get the house. So I don't know what they do, except for they should be there for all of the activities for the agents. Some of the agents actually don't want to go to the inspection. I've had them tell me in writing, this one guy was going to make $20,000 for going to a 1-hour open house to show his buyer, writing a 10-minute contract. And then he sends me an email and says, well, can't you just give out the combo to the unlicensed, unqualified inspector for 3 hours in an occupied home? Because it's just a waste of my time to go to an inspection. I'm like, dude, you're going to make over $20,000 and you can't be bothered to spend a cumulus amount of maybe 4 or 5 hours with this one buyer. Who doesn't want that gig? So it's insanity right now. And it's my job, if I'm representing the seller, to protect them from the craziness as best I can. That's my best summary of what a buyer agent does or doesn't do, because once they get a contract, okay, we got a contract, then they do an inspection. Oh, we're going to ask for stuff. Now I'm getting more stuff. And if I don't get more stuff, I'm going to terminate. And then they do an appraisal. And if the appraisal doesn't come in the way they want, or if we need repairs to satisfy the lender, we got to get more stuff from the seller. And then if I don't get an extension, if my lender messes up and can't close on time, they send this form that the Division of Real Estate created that said, if you don't give me an extension, we're walking 2 days before closing after the seller's already moved out. So it's insanity. I would love to tie it to performance. I'm sure I'll never pull it off in my career, but that's the kind of stuff I go through. So, Richard, that's my job, to protect people.
And you do a great job. It's a fiduciary relationship. You understand that. Not everyone does. Unfortunately, you're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900. Barb, we're talking about negotiating the sale. What can you tell the sellers on how to win during those negotiations?
Well, I mean, they have to have a plan and a backup plan, essentially. Some people want speed of sale. Some people are not in a hurry to sell. So if they're willing to walk away, there's nothing wrong with that. But you just have to have a plan in your mind of what you will and will not accept. And if the buyer doesn't want that, okay, we'll go get another buyer. So we'll sit down and we actually do a spreadsheet of 3 different columns of different options so they can think about it and discuss it and make the best choice for them. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call. This is what we do every day, every week, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Time for your favorite portion of the program. Mine as well. Hot new listings. What do you have this week, Barb?
Well, Richard, I have a really cool home in Woodland Park, very close to the hospital, priced at $3,099. A gorgeous rancher on Rushmore, in the low threes. A fabulous home on 5 acres on Alta Plaza. Beautiful home in Briargate in the mid 4s. Coming up this week, a great 4-plex would be, you could actually live in it and rent the rest out and basically get your mortgage paid for. Really cool historic property up in Cripple Creek. This one featured, we've got 2 of them featured this weekend. One of them being held open from 11:30 to 12:30, 303 Montclair Street. Absolutely gorgeous remodeled home. And another one with a attached 2-car and massive man cave. Can I say that? Man cave workshop. 1240 Big Valley Drive. Beautiful rock rimmon home. That one's priced in the low 7s. Fabulous home on Willamette, completely remodeled. Gorgeous home on Royal Troon down in Pueblo. Another great house with a 3-car garage in Peyton on Beckham Street at 505. Stunning home in Broadmoor Bluffs. Backs to property owned by NORAD, so it will never be built on, in the upper 6s. and an absolutely beautiful, eye-watering, gorgeous custom home on open sky in prestigious High Forest Ranch, priced at $2.19 million. Give us a call. We also have lots and more properties coming soon all the time. Go to Go to barbhasthebuyers.com.
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday from 11 o'clock, right after Cudlow. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. You can see replays of the show on Barb's YouTube channel, Barb Has the Buyers, or listen to the podcast on all of the popular podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, many, many others. Thank you for listening this week. To reach out to Barb, again, that number is 719-301-3900. Thanks for listening. Barb, you have a great extended weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.